I go out, get more views, and I'll marry you.
Yeah, right. Like that's gonna happen.
Try not to scratch it this time, hero, she said, her voice slicing through the dusty afternoon air like a blade dipped in honey and venom. And just like that, every man in the garage turned their heads toward the voice that dripped with arrogance and perfume. The mechanic froze, a wrench in his hand, his reflection bending in the chrome of a Lamborghini that wasn't his. Never his. Her laugh came next, bright and sharp, the kind of sound that made people watch, even when they knew someone was about to be humiliated. But there was something in her tone, that smug, glittering superiority, that hinted she had no idea how much the world could change when pride went too far. The garage sat on the edge of Los Angeles, where the city bled into the desert. Metal and heat, music from street radios, oil-stained floors. It smelled like gasoline and ambition. The girl was a storm that didn't belong there. Glossy hair, white crop top, gold chain glinting against sun-browned skin, and a phone always recording. Layla Scott, 3 million followers, queen of chrome and clickbait. Her camera was her sword, her audience her armor. And the man she mocked was Elijah Cole. Tall, dark, quiet, skin shining with sweat and pride, grease under his nails, sleeves rolled high to reveal muscles sculpted by labor, not gyms. He had a voice like velvet mixed with gravel, though right now he said nothing. Only the silence of a man swallowing humiliation to keep his job. Layla stepped closer, filming. "Look at this, guys," she said to her phone, flashing her perfect teeth. "My favorite mechanic, the one who took 5 hours to change my brake pads last time. Maybe if you weren't so busy flirting with the cars, you'd be faster." Laughter rippled through the small crowd of workers and customers. Cameras came out. The air grew thick with the taste of embarrassment and cheap adrenaline. Elijah straightened slowly, wiping his hands on a rag, eyes steady but heavy. The kind of steady that said, "I'm used to this." The kind that said, "Not again." He looked at her camera and said evenly, "Ma'am, I just do my job." "Ma'am," she laughed. "Don't make me sound old. You can call me Layla, or better yet, your boss's favorite client." The other mechanics shifted uncomfortably. Everyone knew the truth. Layla brought business. Her videos of luxury cars being serviced here had turned a quiet shop into a viral spot. Her presence was both blessing and curse. She leaned on the hood of the Lamborghini, tapping a manicured nail against it. "You know, Elijah, maybe if you had your own channel you could get famous too, then you wouldn't have to fix mine." She tilted her head, mock thoughtful. "Tell you what, get more views than me, and I'll marry you." A roar of laughter. The men howled. Even the foreman smirked, shaking his head. Elijah's jaw tightened. His dark eyes flicked up to hers, unreadable. "Don't waste your words on me, ma'am," he said softly, his accent, a faint trace of Georgia and grit, barely masking the storm beneath. "Some of us ain't born with cameras, just hands." Layla's smile faltered for half a breath, then sharpened again. "Well, maybe hands aren't enough anymore." She gestured to her phone. "It's all about stories, baby. People love a good one." "Then you better tell it right," he murmured. Her eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" He didn't answer, just turned back to the car, tightening a bolt with slow precision, the sound of metal clicking like a heartbeat between them. The camera kept rolling. She filmed his silence, thinking it made her look powerful, thinking her followers would eat it up. Later that night, the video went live. "When your mechanic thinks he's better than you," Car Queen Los Angeles, luxury life. Within hours, it hit 1 million views. Comments poured in. Laughter, mockery, racial jabs disguised as jokes. She loved it. Her followers called her savage. They called him the Dusty Dreamer. But not everyone laughed. A few comments asked who the mechanic was. Someone wrote, That guy looks like he's got fire in his eyes. At the shop, Elijah saw the video the next morning on a co-worker's phone. The sound of Layla's laughter filled the air again. But this time it came from all around. From phones, from speakers, from passing customers showing their screens. The laughter followed him like a smell. He didn't speak, didn't fight. Just took off his cap, wiped his face, and kept working. But something had shifted in his silence. Something sharp, focused, dangerous. That night, after the garage closed, Elijah sat in his small one-room apartment, cracked wall, flickering light. He opened an old laptop, its fan humming like an old car engine. On the screen, he typed, Black Wrench Diaries, Epo 1 What They Don't See. He hit record. His voice came out low and calm, carrying weight. You ever been laughed at by someone who thinks your sweat's dirt? This is for you. Outside, the city lights flickered over his reflection in the dusty window. Somewhere across town, Layla was celebrating another viral post, sipping champagne on a rooftop. She didn't know it yet, but her mockery had just woken something that doesn't sleep. Hunger. And hunger, when dressed in silence, always finds its way to roar. The next morning came with the smell of burnt coffee and rubber, the kind that clung to the air of every car garage like a stubborn ghost. The sun beat down on the corrugated roof of Westline Auto, and the rhythmic hum of drills and engines filled the background, but the mood was different. Every mechanic knew it, even if no one said a word. Elijah had become a punchline. Layla's video was everywhere now, reposted, remixed, memed. Her followers were ecstatic, the comments a cocktail of laughter and cruelty. Bro looks like he polishes rims for rent, one read. Tell him to stick to fixing, not flirting, said another. It wasn't just mockery, it was humiliation on a global scale. When Layla pulled into the garage again 2 days later, it was like watching a celebrity strut onto a battlefield she didn't even know she'd created. Her car, a candy-red McLaren, purred like arrogance on wheels. A Bluetooth speaker in the trunk blasted a pop song as she stepped out in tight jeans and oversized sunglasses. Her phone was already live. "Morning, people!" she chirped into the camera, walking past the rows of grease-stained overalls. "Back at the best shop in L.A., and my favorite mechanic's gonna try not to break anything today." Her viewers laughed in the scrolling comments. The workers laughed too. Not because it was funny, but because it was easier. Laughter is safer than silence when power's watching. Elijah stood by the workbench, focused on a stripped engine block. He didn't look up when she approached. "You're famous now," she teased, her tone sugar-coated poison. "You've got, what, 500,000 views on my clip? Don't say I never did anything for you." Still, he said nothing. Just tightened another bolt, steady, patient, deliberate. The sound of his ratchet wrench echoed through the garage like defiance in disguise. Layla tilted her head. "You don't talk much, do you? No comeback? Not even a smile for your favorite influencer?" He finally looked at her. "I don't smile for people who sell other folks' dignity," he said. Her grin faltered for a heartbeat, then came back sharper. "Oh, please, it's just content. Lighten up. You act like I ruined your life." "You didn't ruin it," he said softly. "You just showed it what it already was." She frowned, confused by the weight of his words. But before she could answer, a young mechanic, Diego, barely 20, hungry for attention, called out, "Yo, Layla, you should let him race you for it. If he wins, maybe he'll get a real video." The whole garage broke into laughter again. The idea was ridiculous. A mechanic with no car, challenging a woman who changed Lamborghinis like sneakers. Layla laughed too, flipping her hair, playing along. "Yeah, Elijah. You think you can beat me? Get some views that way?" He wiped his hands on his rag, eyes steady. "I don't race for clout." "Of course not," she said. "You'd have to own a car first." That one hit harder. The workers chuckled nervously, pretending to keep working, but everyone felt the sting. Elijah's jaw flexed. For a moment, silence swallowed the room. Then Layla lifted her phone again. "Guys, I think our man here's getting shy. Don't worry, baby. Maybe one day you'll make a name for yourself. Until then, just keep my car clean, yeah?" Something flickered in his eyes. Not anger. Something colder. Purpose. That night, when the shop closed, Elijah went home and worked again. Not on engines, but on his videos. Black Wrench Diaries grew one episode at a time. He filmed the broken cars, the stories of customers who couldn't afford repairs, the quiet dignity of labor. He spoke about machines like they were people, about how the world treats both the same, good when shiny, forgotten when used. It wasn't glamorous, no sponsors, no edits, just a man, a camera, and truth. At first, no one cared. Then someone did. A user on TikTok reposted one of his clips, the one where Elijah said, "A car doesn't care about your color. It just wants to run." It went viral overnight. People called him the philosopher mechanic. He gained 10,000 followers, then 50, then 100. By the end of the month, his small apartment was filled with tripods, cables, and a second-hand microphone. The internet had found something real, something Layla's polish couldn't compete with. Meanwhile, Layla noticed the shift. Her views were dipping. Her comments turned sour. People started bringing up that mechanic. They said she'd been cruel, tone-deaf, arrogant. Someone stitched her video with Elijah's latest clip, and the contrast was brutal. Her laugh against his calm voice. Her brand began to crack. Sponsors hesitated. Hashtags turned. Respect. The hands trended under his name. She came back to the garage again, unannounced. This time there were no cameras. Her makeup was flawless, but there was tension in her eyes. She approached Elijah, who was working on a busted motorcycle, humming softly to himself. "So," she said, folding her arms, "you think you're a star now?" He looked up, meeting her gaze evenly. "No. Just a man doing what he's always done. You just made people notice." Her jaw clenched. "You're not the hero here. You're using me for clout." He almost smiled. Guess we both learned something about stories. A car backfired outside. The sound cracked through the air like punctuation. Layla flinched, then turned sharply toward the door, her voice trembling with something that wasn't confidence anymore. "You'll regret this," she said. "You think the internet loves you? Wait till it turns." He watched her leave, her heels clicking against the concrete like warning shots fading into the distance. But Elijah knew something she didn't. The world didn't need to turn. It already had. The camera light flickered across Elijah's face, painting his features in dim amber. He sat on a metal stool in the corner of his apartment, a half-empty cup of coffee beside the tripod, the hum of the city outside his window. "People think mechanics just fix cars," he said to the lens, "but most of us fix more than that. We fix what's broken because no one else will." His voice was low, resonant, worn smooth by years of swallowing words. The video wasn't for fame, it was confession. Every night he spoke to that small, blinking red light, and behind it, somehow to the ghosts of everyone who ever looked down on him. He had grown up in Atlanta, the middle child of a factory worker and a nurse. His father's hands had been cracked from steel and cold winters, and his mother had once told him, "Work honest, son. The world don't always see you, but God does." When he was 17, his father died under a collapsed hydraulic lift at a warehouse. The company called it an accident. The payout was small, barely enough to cover the funeral. That day, Elijah learned two things: that the world doesn't stop for the broken, and that metal always remembers its maker. He moved west, chasing work and warmth, sleeping in his car for the first few months outside Los Angeles. The city didn't care who he was. It cared what he could fix. He started at Westline Auto as a night cleaner, then learned by watching, asking, staying late. By the time they trusted him with real work, he'd already memorized the sound of every tool, every kind of engine. He built his life piece by piece, like a car rebuilt from scraps. But what people didn't see was the other side, the loneliness of being invisible in a place that worships shine. He watched influencers glide through the garage, filming their luxury rides while men like him stood in the shadows, hands blackened by oil, faces ignored. He didn't envy them, not exactly. He just knew that every engine they flaunted was powered by someone else's sweat. That's why Layla's laughter had cut so deep. It wasn't just her words, it was the way she made his labor look small, meaningless. For her, the garage was a stage. For him, it was a battlefield. As his following grew online, he found something he hadn't felt in years, a voice that people actually listened to. Strangers from everywhere sent him messages. Truckers, single mothers, retired engineers, kids from rough neighborhoods. They said his calm made them proud, that his honesty reminded them of their fathers, brothers, grandfathers. He wasn't chasing views anymore. He was building a bridge. Yet under that calm, the old anger still lived. Sometimes, late at night, he'd replay her voice in his head, that mocking laugh. "Get more views and I'll marry you." He could still see the sneer, the phone, the ring light reflecting in her sunglasses. The memory made his stomach twist, not because of the humiliation, but because part of him wanted to prove her wrong so badly it scared him. But Elijah was no fool. He knew fame could turn as fast as a wrench. He'd seen it in the comments already, new fans asking for drama, for revenge. He didn't want revenge. He wanted respect. One evening after closing the garage, the foreman, an older man named Rick, leaned on the doorframe watching Elijah pack his gear. "You got something real going on with those videos," Rick said. "Don't let it make you bitter." Elijah looked up. "Why you say that?" "Because fame's a funny thing, son. It don't fix what's broken inside you, just puts it on camera." The words stayed with him. The next day, he visited his father's old toolbox, the one he kept under his bed, wrapped in a rag that still smelled faintly of motor oil and tobacco. Inside was a folded note in his father's handwriting, "Build something they can't laugh at." Elijah read it over and over, his thumb tracing the creases. That night, he filmed again, eyes steady, voice roughened by emotion. "You can mock a man for being dirty," he said, "but dirt's just proof you've touched something real." The video exploded. Millions watched. Comments poured in like rain, people calling him a poet of engines, a working-class prophet. Hashtags spread across TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Black Wrench, Hands of Pride, Fix What They Broke. Brands reached out. Journalists wanted interviews. Elijah stayed quiet, declining most offers. He still went to work every morning, still wore the same oil-stained overalls. But inside, something shifted. The shame had melted into a quiet strength, the kind that doesn't need to shout. Layla, meanwhile, was unraveling. She'd lost 2 sponsorships. Her followers accused her of bullying. She tried to post new content makeup tutorials, travel clips, but the comments always turned. "Apologize to the mechanic. You built your fame on cruelty." Her perfect world began to crack, piece by piece. Elijah didn't gloat. He didn't comment. He just kept creating. But deep inside, he knew it wasn't over. She wouldn't let it be. Because people like Layla, people who lived off control, don't disappear quietly. They come back to reclaim the narrative. And when she did, the story would ignite again. Only this time, the man she mocked wouldn't be the same one she humiliated in that garage. He had become something else, something the world was finally starting to see. By the time October burned through Los Angeles, Elijah's face had become a symbol. His voice was clipped into motivational reels, quoted on T-shirts, and dissected on talk shows that spoke about authentic creators like they were stock options. His rise was quiet, but relentless. the kind of fame that grew not from noise, but from truth. Yet the more his light spread, the darker Layla's shadow became. She scrolled through her phone one night in her glass-walled apartment overlooking the city. The comments under her posts were brutal. "Apologize to him, you coward. Queen of arrogance. He's more real than you'll ever be." Her chest tightened as she read, her fingers trembling despite the air conditioning. She had built her empire on confidence, on never flinching, but for the first time she felt the ground tilt beneath her. Her agent's message flashed on the screen. "Layla, your brand's in trouble. We need damage control." The next morning, she appeared at the garage again. No cameras, just her and the silent hum of engines. The workers froze. No one knew whether to greet her or hide. Rick looked up from under a hood, muttering, "Lord have mercy." Elijah was under a car when her heels clicked across the floor. He rolled out slowly, his shirt smeared with grease, a wrench still in his hand. Their eyes met. The air between them crackled like static. "Layla," he said, calm but unreadable. She folded her arms. "You made me the villain." "You filmed yourself," he replied, standing. "All I did was tell my story." "I was joking," she snapped. "You made it personal." "It was personal the second you laughed at me," he said, his voice quiet but hard. For a moment, neither moved. The other mechanics pretended to work but couldn't stop watching. The tension was alive, pulsing like heat off asphalt. Layla's tone shifted, desperate. "Look, I came here to talk. I'll make a public apology. We can collaborate, clear the air. You get your respect, I get my reputation back." Win-win. He stared at her, the faintest ghost of a smile curling his lips. "You think this is about reputation?" "It's about survival," she hissed. "You think I don't know what it's like to fall? One bad narrative and I'm done. Sponsors, fans, everything gone." He wiped his hands on a rag, his eyes never leaving hers. "Maybe you should have thought of that before you use people as props." Her jaw clenched. "You sound righteous now, but you're just another hustler chasing clout. Don't act holy." "Maybe," he said, "but I didn't sell anyone's dignity to get it." A murmur rippled through the garage. Even Rick stepped closer, ready to intervene if things went south. Layla's cheeks flushed crimson. She turned sharply and stormed out, her heels striking the floor like gunshots, but her words stuck. Hustler, clout. It stung because somewhere inside, Elijah feared she might be right. Every new follower felt like fuel and fuel burns. Over the next week, the internet split into factions. Yes, Team Elijah and Thatcher Team Layla trended side by side. Influencers made reaction videos. Talk shows debated modern bullying. Layla posted a tearful apology, saying she never meant to offend anyone. The video hit 10 million views. Half called her brave, half called her manipulative. Elijah stayed silent. That silence only made him bigger. Then came the sponsors. A major car brand reached out, offering him a contract to appear in a campaign about real mechanics. He turned it down. Not because he didn't need it, but because he could already see how the story would twist. They didn't want him. They wanted his redemption arc. His pain, packaged and profitable. Rick noticed his tension. "You're fighting ghosts now, son," he said one night, locking up. "Don't let their noise drown your reason." But Elijah couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting. Layla wasn't done. He could feel her moving behind the curtain, planning something. He was right. 2 days later, she uploaded a new video. Not an apology this time, but a challenge. The thumbnail showed her smiling beside a race car. The title read, "Mechanic versus Influencer, Who Knows Cars Better?" In the video, she grinned into the camera saying, "I've decided to settle this the fun way. If Elijah's as good as the internet thinks, he can prove it head-to-head. Build and race, no edits, no excuses." It went viral within hours. Everyone tagged him. Comment sections exploded. "Do it, Elijah. Show her what real skill looks like." End this. He saw the clip while sitting in his apartment, the city humming outside. His laptop screen flickered with her smirk, the same one that started it all. His hands tightened around his cup of coffee until it creaked. Rick called later that night. "You ain't thinking of actually doing it, are you?" Elijah didn't answer right away. He watched the window where neon lights bled across the glass. "Maybe it's time," he said finally. "Maybe she needs to see what real looks like." Rick sighed. "You don't owe her a damn thing." "I don't," Elijah said, his tone colder now, "but I owe myself the truth." The next morning, he posted a video. No fancy effects, just his calm face, his steady eyes. "Challenge accepted," he said simply. "No cameras, no edits, just engines. You said get more views and I'll marry you? Let's see how much truth the world can handle." The internet erupted. The race was on. Layla smiled behind her phone as notifications poured in. For her, it was survival one last spark to revive her name. For Elijah, it was something else entirely. Not vengeance, but closure. But as both of them prepared, the influencer polishing her image, the mechanic tuning his machine, the pressure mounted. The story that began with mockery had grown into something unstoppable. Every breath, every word, every click was pushing them toward a collision neither could avoid. And when it came, the world would be watching. The night before the race, Los Angeles buzzed like a live wire. Neon lights dripped down the sides of glass towers, and the city hummed with anticipation. Hashtags pulsed across every screen. Layla's Elijah, the race of truth. Wrench V's influencer. Street talk, podcasts, gossip columns, everyone had an opinion. It wasn't just a race anymore. It was a showdown of pride, class, and perception. The influencer against the man she'd mocked. The world was hungry for blood disguised as entertainment. Layla stood in her penthouse garage, surrounded by a team of technicians and stylists. Her car, a sleek silver Porsche GT4, gleamed under the studio lights, every curve sculpted for the camera. She wore a tailored racing suit in white and gold, her hair perfectly styled, makeup sharp, and camera ready. Every move was calculated. She looked in the mirror and told herself she wasn't afraid, but fear flickered behind her reflection. Her followers were watching, sponsors hovering. If she lost, she wouldn't just lose a race, she'd lose her narrative. "Make sure the cameras catch everything," she told her assistant, snapping her fingers. "Angles, reactions, all of it. If I win, it has to look like redemption. If I lose—" She didn't finish. She didn't have to. Across the city, Elijah worked in silence. His garage wasn't glamorous, just a cracked concrete floor, the smell of oil and metal, a single hanging bulb swaying from the ceiling. The car before him wasn't built for beauty. It was built to move. He'd pieced it together over months from salvaged parts. An old Mustang frame, a rebuilt V8 engine, tuned by his own hands. It wasn't about speed alone. It was about legacy. Every bolt carried memory, every wire a heartbeat. Rick stood by the door, arms crossed. "You sure about this, son? She's got a whole production team. You got you." Elijah tightened a lug nut, his jaw set. "I've had worse odds." "Yeah, but this ain't about cars anymore," Rick said. "This is about pride. Pride gets men killed faster than bad breaks." Elijah looked up, his eyes burning under the dim light. "It's not about pride, Rick. It's about respect." When dawn came, the race location was already a carnival, a private airstrip outside the city, rented for the spectacle. Drones buzzed overhead, influencers gathered with cameras, and a roaring crowd lined the edges. Food trucks, neon signs, blaring music. It was half auto show, half gladiator arena. Layla arrived first, stepping out of her Porsche like royalty descending into chaos. The crowd screamed her name, phones flashing, lights catching her golden suit. She smiled, practiced and perfect, waving to her fans. Then the cheers shifted as Elijah's Mustang rolled in loud, raw, unapologetic, the kind of car that smelled like history and gasoline. He stepped out, wearing a simple black jumpsuit. No sponsors, no brand logos, just the quiet confidence of a man who'd built everything he stood beside. The crowd hushed for a moment, then erupted again, divided between her glamour and his grit. Layla walked up to him, her smile thin as glass. "Nice car. Didn't know scrap metal could shine." He met her gaze calmly. "Didn't know mirrors could race." She blinked, caught off guard, then forced a laugh. Cameras captured every second. The host, a booming-voiced YouTuber with too much energy, stepped between them, hyping up the crowd. "Two worlds collide tonight. The influencer queen versus the mechanic who broke the internet. Who's ready?" The crowd roared. Engines revved. Drones whirred. Layla's heart pounded in rhythm with the noise, adrenaline mixing with dread. She looked at Elijah, calm, focused, almost serene, and hated that calm. It made her feel exposed. They lined up at the starting line, her Porsche gleaming like a promise, his Mustang rumbling like a threat. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in blood-orange streaks. The announcer's voice thundered over the speakers. 3, 2, 1. The engines screamed. Tires exploded against asphalt. They shot forward like bullets through smoke. Layla surged ahead at first, the Porsche slicing through the air with precision. The cameras followed her, drones catching her confident grin. But halfway down the strip, something shifted. The Mustang came alive behind her, snarling, relentless, devouring the distance. Elijah's hands gripped the wheel like it was part of him, his focus absolute. The roar of the engines merged into a single sound, power, fury, defiance. Sparks lit up the asphalt as they tore down the final stretch, neck and neck. The crowd screamed themselves hoarse. Layla glanced at him through the side mirror, panic flashing in her eyes. She pushed harder, foot slamming the accelerator. But her car wasn't tuned for punishment, it was tuned for show. The dashboard flickered red. An error flashed. The Porsche shuddered, just enough to slow her momentum. The Mustang shot past her like thunder. The finish line blurred, and then it was over. Silence for half a second. Then chaos. The crowd erupted into a storm of noise, disbelief, elation. Cameras swung to Elijah's car as it rolled to a stop. He stepped out, breathing hard, oil smudged, eyes blazing. The man they'd laughed at stood triumphant beneath the floodlights. Layla slammed her door and got out, trembling. Reporters swarmed, microphones like spears. "Layla, what happened? Do you have a comment? He beat you." She tried to smile, but her voice cracked. "Good race," she said, forcing it out. But her eyes betrayed her wet, furious, defeated. Elijah walked over, extended his hand. No hard feelings. She looked at it, then at the cameras, her pride warring with humiliation. Slowly she reached out and shook his hand. The crowd cheered, but when their eyes met, there was no warmth, only the heat of unfinished business. The night swallowed the noise, and for a moment it seemed like everything had been decided. But fame doesn't end with a handshake. It festers. It remembers. And as the lights dimmed, Layla's mind whispered one promise through the ache of her defeat. This isn't over. The internet crowned Elijah a hero overnight. Every feed was flooded with clips of the race, his calm face, her shocked silence, the handshake that looked like surrender. Commentators called it the moment pride lost to perseverance. Memes, hashtags, think pieces, all of it carved Layla's humiliation deeper into the digital concrete. For Elijah, fame had turned from rumor to reality. But while the world celebrated him, he felt the unease of someone standing on a cliff with the ground shifting beneath his boots. Fame was never free. It came with eyes, expectations, vultures circling overhead. Offers poured in, brands, sponsors, reality shows, but something in his gut whispered caution. He wasn't built for the circus. He wanted to fix cars, not feed the machine that had already chewed him once. Still, at night, when the noise died, he sometimes scrolled through his own videos and saw what the world saw, the calm man who'd conquered arrogance. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like exposure. Meanwhile, Layla vanished from public sight. Her social feeds went dark. No updates, no stories. Rumors bloomed in her absence. Some said she'd fled the country, others said she'd gone into rehab or debt. The silence only fueled curiosity. Elijah didn't think about her much until one night, when a black envelope appeared at his door. No name, just his own, written in careful script. Inside was a note. "Not everything you see is real. Meet me where the engines sleep. Midnight." The handwriting was unmistakable. Layla. The word smelled faintly of her perfume, sharp and expensive. Rick warned him not to go, said it was bait, said she was trouble, but curiosity burned like oil in Elijah's chest. Midnight found him at the closed garage, the one they'd raced from months ago. The sky hung heavy with clouds. Streetlights flickered weakly, painting the world in sickly amber. She was already there, leaning against a silver car, her once perfect hair damp from the fog. No cameras, no entourage, just her and the whisper of wind. She looked different, stripped of armor. Her eyes were tired, rimmed with sleeplessness. "You came," she said quietly. "You called," he replied. "What do you want?" She hesitated before answering. "The truth." He studied her face, searching for the performance, the act. But there was something raw in her voice, something human. "What truth?" he asked. "The race," she said, exhaling. "It wasn't what it looked like." His muscles tensed. "You saying I didn't win?" "You did," she said quickly. "That's not what I mean. I mean the setup, the sponsorships, the views. You think it was just me and you out there? It wasn't. Someone funded it, someone who wanted this story to blow up, to pit us against each other." "Who?" he demanded. She looked away. "A network executive. He offered me a deal before the race, a full reality series. Me versus you. Drama cells," he said. "I was desperate, so I agreed. I didn't know they'd push it this far." "So you made me your villain," Elijah said coldly. "You let them turn me into your ladder." "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "It got out of hand. After you won, they dropped me. Said the story had already peaked. They used us both." Elijah stepped back, his breath sharp. He thought of the cameras, the perfect angles, the way the story had spread like wildfire. "You expect me to believe you didn't know?" "I knew they wanted a show," she said. "But I didn't know they'd bury me for losing it." For the first time, her voice cracked, not out of self-pity, but regret. "They edited my clips, made me look worse. Every word I said was twisted." He didn't answer. He just watched her, the woman who'd humiliated him, now unraveling under the same machine that once worshipped her. "Why tell me this?" he finally asked. "Because they're not done," she said. "They're planning a follow-up, a redemption story. You versus me, round 2 but scripted this time." "They're already negotiating rights to your name. They want to own you, Elijah, your image, your story, everything." The words hung heavy. He didn't doubt her. It made too much sense. He'd noticed new channels reposting his videos with strange branding, news anchors quoting him out of context. The story had grown beyond him. "You helped build the fire," he said quietly. "Now it's burning you too." She nodded. "That's why I need your help." "My help?" He almost laughed. "After everything?" "You don't have to forgive me," she said, stepping closer. "But you need to know what's coming. They'll twist you next. When they're done, you'll be the villain too." For a moment, neither spoke. The sound of a passing freight train rumbled in the distance, metal on metal. Layla's voice dropped to a whisper. "They already started filming without us." Elijah frowned. "Filming what?" She reached into her coat and handed him a small flash drive. "Proof. Watch it." Then she turned, walking toward the darkness before he could ask more. "Layla," he called after her. She stopped but didn't turn around. "Why help me now?" Her answer floated back through the mist. "Because I finally understand what you meant. Some of us don't chase views, we chase peace." And then she was gone, swallowed by the night. Elijah stood there, the flash drive heavy in his palm, heart pounding. Something deep inside him whispered that whatever was on it would change everything. The real game had just begun. The flash drive burned a hole in Elijah's palm all the way home. The night was slick with fog, the kind that blurred neon into watercolor, the kind that made everything feel unreal. Inside his apartment, he plugged the drive into his laptop, and the screen came alive with static before cutting to footage, grainy, time-stamped, unsettlingly familiar. It showed him, his videos, his face, but the logos in the corners weren't his. A watermark read, "True Grit Media Presents, The Mechanic Chronicles." The voiceover was artificial, cold, narrating his life as if it were a trailer. He was a nobody. She made him famous. Now they'll face off again in a story of redemption and revenge. The clips were edited like a movie, his quiet moments twisted into arrogance, his words spliced to sound proud, cruel. The footage cut to Layla's apology video, overlaid with ominous music, then to her face crying, then his hand tightening on a wrench. The narrative was clear. He was the villain now. The machine had shifted targets. The screen froze on his face with the tagline, "Coming soon." Elijah sat back, chest tight. Rage rippled through him, not loud but deep, like the hum of a revving engine ready to explode. He clicked through the files, emails, contracts, drafts. Layla hadn't lied. The network had planned the entire feud, feeding the internet a story dressed as reality, and now they wanted to sell its sequel. His phone buzzed a message from an unknown number. "We can make you bigger than ever. Let's talk." Attached was a contract proposal, offering money beyond anything he'd ever seen. He deleted it instantly. The next morning, he went to the garage early, the world outside still pale and empty. Rick was already there, sipping coffee from a cracked mug. Elijah told him everything. The old man listened without interrupting, his face unreadable. When Elijah finished, Rick said quietly, "So now you know. Fame ain't a prize. It's a leash." Elijah nodded. "They think they can own me." They can't own what they don't understand," Rick said. "You built your name with your hands. They built theirs with noise." That night, Elijah uploaded a video not flashy, not edited, just truth. He sat at his workbench, camera steady, eyes locked on the lens. "They made a movie out of my life," he said slowly. "They cut up my words, turned my silence into arrogance, my pride into sin. But here's the thing, they didn't build this. I did, with these hands, with work, with sweat. You can't own that." His tone hardened. "If you're watching this and you ever let someone tell your story for you, remember, they don't want your truth. They want your pain, packaged and sold. Don't give it to them." Then he ended the video with one sentence. "I'm taking back my story." It hit the internet like a storm. Millions watched. The hashtags flipped overnight. Truth over trends, hands don't lie, unedited life. Commenters flooded the corporate channel's pages, calling them exploiters, liars, vultures. Sponsors panicked. The network tried to strike back, releasing a statement claiming Elijah was ungrateful, unstable, breaching contract. But people had seen enough to know the difference between a press release and a cry of guilt. And then, Layla reappeared. Her live stream started without warning one evening. No makeup, no lighting, just her in a dim room with trembling hands. "They used me too," she said, her voice breaking. "They told me what to say, when to smile. They made me mock him because it was good TV. I thought I was in control, but I was just another character in their script. I'm sorry." Her tears weren't pretty. They were raw, the kind that hurt to watch. "Elijah didn't ruin my career. I did. I let them turn me into something I wasn't. But he showed me what truth looks like, and I'm done being a lie." She ended the stream abruptly, leaving the world in stunned silence. The next day, major outlets reported that the network's offices were under investigation for defamation, contract tampering, and fabricated media. Someone had leaked the internal emails and footage, someone with access to that flash drive. No one knew who did it, but Elijah had a suspicion. Layla. For once, she'd used her influence not to destroy, but to dismantle. That evening, Elijah drove back to the same airstrip where the race had happened. The sun was setting again, the light soft and gold, the air filled with that faint hum of distance and memory. A figure was waiting near the track. Layla, in jeans and a plain hoodie, no cameras this time. She looked smaller, quieter, real. "You leaked it," he said. It wasn't a question. She nodded. "They threatened to sue me if I spoke up, but I couldn't keep living like that." "You know they'll come after you now," he said. She smiled faintly. "Maybe, but at least this time, it'll be for the truth." For a while, they just stood there, the silence between them no longer heavy but clean, like an engine finally tuned right. "You know," she said, looking out toward the horizon, "you could have destroyed me. You had the whole world on your side." "Wasn't the world I wanted," Elijah said. "I just wanted peace." She nodded, eyes shining. "And you found it?" He looked at his hands, scarred, steady, alive. Almost. The wind shifted, carrying the faint smell of oil and earth. Somewhere in the distance, an engine roared to life, echoing across the open strip like a heartbeat. The story that had started with humiliation had come full circle, but something deeper was still moving beneath it. Layla turned to him one last time. "They'll try again, you know. They always do. Someone will find a new story to twist." "Then we'll tell it first," he said. His voice was calm, almost a promise. And for the first time since that day in the garage, she smiled. Not the glossy influencer smile, but a human one, fragile and free. The sky darkened around them, but neither moved. The storm was over, yet the air still crackled with something new, something like redemption, something like hope. The truth had started to roar. The sun rose over Los Angeles like a quiet apology, golden light spilling across rooftops, painting the city soft instead of sharp for once. The world was still buzzing about Elijah Cole, the mechanic who took down an empire with a wrench and a camera. But inside his small garage, the noise didn't reach. The air smelled of oil and dust and coffee, the soundtrack of his life back before the world learned his name. He liked it that way. He'd gone back to fixing cars, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Because the sound of an engine catching breath felt more honest than applause ever did. The sign outside the shop was new now. Cole Mechanics. Built, not bought. Every morning a few people showed up just to shake his hand, to thank him for standing his ground. He always smiled politely, then went back to work. The fame hadn't changed him. It had just stripped everything false away. Rick still worked beside him, grumbling about the attention, but proud in his own quiet way. One morning, while Elijah was tightening a timing belt, Rick said, "You ever think about doing interviews again? People still asking?" Elijah chuckled. "For what? I already said what I needed to say." Rick nodded. "Yeah, but not everyone listens the first time." Elijah leaned back, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Then they'll learn from the silence." The old man laughed, shaking his head. "You always did talk like a preacher." Elijah smiled faintly. "Nah, just a man who got tired of noise." Across town, in a modest studio apartment, Layla sat at her desk surrounded by camera equipment she hadn't touched in weeks. The ring light sat unplugged, gathering dust. Her phone buzzed with messages from agencies' offers for redemption interviews, docuseries, comeback deals. She deleted them all. For the first time, she was filming something without an audience in mind. A quiet documentary about working hands, inspired by Elijah's words. She titled it, "Fix What's Broken." It wasn't about cars. It was about people, about herself, about learning that fame wasn't freedom, and that apology was a form of courage. When the short film went live weeks later, she didn't tag Elijah, didn't promote it with her old tricks. But somehow it found its way to him anyway. One night after closing the shop, Elijah sat in the glow of his laptop, watching her speak. No filters, no bravado, just Layla, honest and trembling. "This isn't an apology video," she said. "This is a lesson. I thought views meant worth. I thought attention meant love. But I was wrong. The loudest people are often the loneliest. And sometimes the quietest ones teach you what real strength looks like." She paused then, eyes wet but steady. "He didn't need to forgive me. But I learned from him. And that's enough." Elijah closed the laptop and sat still for a long time. Outside, the city buzzed like it always did. Cars, sirens, laughter. But none of it felt the same anymore. He looked around the garage, the walls covered with tools, memories, and a single photo tacked above the workbench. His father, smiling beside a younger Elijah holding a wrench too big for his hands. Beneath it, scrawled in fading pen, were the words his father once wrote. "Build something they can't laugh at." He whispered it under his breath, almost like a prayer. "I did, Dad." Days turned into weeks. The internet moved on to new dramas, new faces to worship and destroy. The machine spun on, hungry and tireless, but Elijah and Layla had stepped off its wheel. They had both been chewed and spat out by the same system, and in its wreckage, they had found something the algorithms couldn't touch: truth. Months later, at a charity car event downtown, Elijah was invited to speak. He almost said no, but Rick insisted. "Ain't about fame this time," he said. "It's about respect." So Elijah stood on the small stage before a modest crowd, mechanics, young creators, people from every walk of life who'd been inspired by his story. He spoke simply, from the heart. People think success is loud, but the loudest engine isn't always the strongest. Sometimes strength is just showing up, doing the work, keeping your hands steady even when the world shakes around you. The crowd applauded, not the wild roar of fame, but the warm hum of understanding. Afterward, as he walked toward his car, he heard a familiar voice. "You still talk like a preacher," Layla said with a small smile. She looked different now, no makeup, no entourage. Just her, real and grounded. He grinned. "Guess I picked it up from all the noise." She handed him a small USB drive. "For you, my new film. It's yours if you want it." He took it, nodding. "You found your voice." "You helped me hear it," she said softly. They stood there a moment longer as the evening light caught in the chrome of nearby cars, a glow like forgiveness. Then she smiled, a real one this time, and walked away. He watched her go, not with bitterness, but quiet respect. Later that night, back at the shop, he slid the USB drive into his laptop. The title card read, "Fix What's Broken," dedicated to the hands that build, not destroy. He watched until the end, where her voice whispered, "In the end, it wasn't about who won. It was about who learned." Elijah leaned back, a slow, satisfied smile spreading across his face. Outside, rain began to fall softly against the roof, tapping in rhythm like a calm heartbeat. The world, for once, felt balanced. And as the screen faded to black, his reflection lingered on it, a mechanic who'd been mocked, broken, remade, and the final truth settled in his chest like the hum of a perfect engine. Some stories aren't built for fame. They're built for forever.